Hello, Brovs. We're back with Shakespeare's Sweetheart. I think we're on chapter 5, no, chapter 6. Just like in Tried for Her Life by Eden Southworth. But I digress. Poor players. The next morning at dawn, my grandam and I returned to Shottery. We traversed the way on foot, and for the most part in silence. What had become of the two horses that Will had left on the borders of the park was a mystery to me then. Afterwards, I learned that one of Sir Thomas's servants had captured them as spoils of war. That we walked in silence was no surprise to me, for my grandam was, as I have said, a woman of few words. Her flow of conversation to Will and me on the terrace had astonished me. Only sudden and great reason could have stirred her to speech. The night before I had galloped on horseback along this same road in its moonlit beauty. Today, in the dreary dawn, I dragged my laggard feet towards home. Yet all was not dark. My grandam and Will had reached an understanding, and my idea, the sudden hopeful thought that had come to me the night before, still stayed with me and animated my weary spirits. My grandam said naught of this, nor of anything else. She had relapsed again into her ordinary mood of calm self-possession. Only once did she speak to me. That was when we stood again at the door of our cottage. The way was long and weary, she said, looking at me with a new softness in her eyes. But take courage, Nan. The sun hath risen. I understood the double meaning she intended to convey. Grandam, I answered gently, but for me the sun rose forever a month since when William Shakespeare first told me of his love. And with that we entered the cottage, and without speaking further began our morning tasks. The day passed slowly, but evening came at last, and with it a neighbor who brought us tidings of Will and his friends. The knight's wrath had blazed high at his repeated injuries, and all the lads were sentenced to varying terms of imprisonment. Will, being the ringleader, was doomed to the longest captivity. The news was not unexpected, so neither my grandam nor I evinced great surprise. When disappointed at our lack of emotion, the gossip had gone to spread the news elsewhere. I said, "Have the players come yet to Stratford, grandam?" "Nay, lass, but they arrive tomorrow," she answered. "When I was in the town yesterday, Dame Quickly was making great preparations. They are huge feeders, she says." "I wonder," I said reflectively. "I wonder if she would care to have me go to help her. I have done so before when she was hard pressed." I think likely, since thou art a favourite of hers," my grandam answered. "Why dost wish to go?" But I did not desire yet to tell my real reason, even to her. "The extra coin she pays me will not come amiss," I answered evasively, "and I should like to see the players. I have never yet beheld them." "Then go when thou wilt, lass," said my grandam. "Tomorrow morn, if thou desirest. Dame Quickly will welcome thee, I know." Before we slept that night, it was agreed that I should do this, and I went to bed well pleased. The town was all astir when I entered it next day. The coming of the players always formed one of the few great excitements in Stratford. The inn, especially, I found in bustle and in excitement, and as my grandam had predicted, Dame Quickly welcomed me with effusion. The players were expected in the afternoon, and I was set to making a huge pastry for their delectation. How many hopes and fears, what tremors and confidences went into that pasty along with the materials that composed it. So far, my sudden plan had prospered well. Would I be able to carry it yet further? I put my best skill into the making of the pasty, and it looked most inviting when I had finished. Dame Quickly was so delighted with its success that I was emboldened to take my second step in the pathway I had planned for myself. "Wilt let me wait on the table, Mistress Quickly? I would like well to see the players." She pursed up her lips and looked at me critically kindly. If thou wilt have it, thou art too comely, Nan," she said at length. "They are loose, rough men, some of them. Thy golden hair, thy large eyes, thy smooth skin would captivate their eyes, perhaps to thine own hurt. I should never forgive myself, shouldst thou meet harm through me." I flushed rosily, both at the suggestion of her words and at the admiration they conveyed. What woman loves not to hear that she is beautiful? I will strive to conduct myself properly, I said demurely. If they prove too boisterous, I can come to thee. Prithee, let me do it, dame. I have heard so much of the players and have never seen them. Somewhat reluctantly, she promised, and my heart leaped with delight. Another part of my self-imposed task was accomplished. A few hours later, loud shouting and the blare of trumpets heralded the arrival of the players. The whole town turned out to welcome them, and amid a storm of huzzas, greetings, and jests, they rode into Stratford and alighted at the door of the inn. When they had actually arrived, I was seized for an instant with a perfect agony of apprehension. There seemed to be so many of them. They were so big and boisterous. How could I ever carry out my plan? Dame Quickly's voice calling me brought me back to my senses. I thought of Will and grew strong. I went to obey the summons and found that my duties were to begin at once. Since the players had arrived ravenous, Dame Quickly put them in a room by themselves with one huge table for them all, and she bade me hasten since they were impatient for their wine. As I stood on the threshold of the room, an instant gathering up my courage for an entrance, I heard a melodious voice within caroling out a catch which the others were interrupting without the least ceremony. Which is the happiest day to drink? Sang forth the mellow tones. How can I name one day? Roared the chorus. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, bruv. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, shouted the whole noisy company. I pushed open the door and entered. To my astonishment and confusion at my appearance, instant silence fell. I almost dropped the cups I held in my embarrassment. He, but no other, cried the same rich, careless voice that had been singing. By St. George, we're Gat, the little town, this daughter of the gods. Hissed Marlowe, interposed a gentler voice. The maid is modest, and thou dost trouble her. Modest, and a tavern wench, cried a courser player, who sat near the door. Impossible, come and kiss me, pretty sweeting. Nay, called the one who had spoken in my favor. Nay, let be, kid. Prithee, bring the cups hither, mistress, an it please thee. The tone was deferential, yet gently admonitory. I ventured to raise my eyes as I obeyed. The speaker I recognized instantly, although he was some years older than when I had seen him, a lad in Stratford streets. 'Twas Dick Burbage, who had been my champion. He beckoned to me to bring the cups, and as I obediently set them before him, he murmured so that none could hear, I know not who thou art, but this is no place for a modest maid, and such thou seemest. Ask Dame Quickly to send another in thy place. Now is my chance or never, I answered breathlessly and low. I have a reason for being here. Let me speak with thee privately. I skipped the page. He glanced at me, surprised, but my strong desire must have shown in my face, for he nodded almost on the instant. Be it so, I will watch for an opportunity. Go hence now. Take that, Kit, Marlowe suddenly cried a shrill, angry voice that I had not heard as yet, and the speaker, a slender, petulant-looking youth, followed his speech by a box on Marlowe's ear. Why wilt thou treat me like a fool? I am no woman, in sooth, though I may act a woman's part. How now? What is the dispute? Asked Burbage, who seemed to be peacemaker in general for the company. Nay, drawled Marlowe in his rich, lazy voice, I did but beg my lady here to press her lips upon the cup, or I drank from it. As Ben Jonson hath it, drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine, or leave a kiss within the cup, and I'll not look for wine. I'm practicing for the play, Dick, that is all. The youth he was teasing gave an angry flounce. Robin Green, dost not know Kit by his time? Said Burbage, his grave face relaxing into a smile. I care not, replied Green, still petulantly. He shall not flaunt me, as if I were no man. I am slender indeed, and my beard is scant, yet I can drink any one of you under the table. I'll wager my purse. I warrant, said Burbage, with something like a sigh. Were Johnson here, he'd have a classical allusion to illustrate that same wager of thine. Which is the happiest day to drink? caroled Marlowe again, winking at Green insolently. And under cover of the vociferous chorus that followed, I made my exit. I went and told Dame quickly that I found the company Ian too boisterous for my taste. Is it Ian or even? Ian. Ian or Ian? Too boisterous for my taste, whereat she nodded her head wisely and sent her homeliest maid in my place. I followed her as far as the door and stood there quaking, wondering if Burbage could and would keep his promise. The instant red-cheeked Suki entered the room, I heard an uproar of voices, then a crash of breaking glass, followed by her unceremonious exit in tears. The next instant Burbage came out also. As he did so, the noise within subsided. They will have none but thee, he said hurriedly, breathlessly. They refused to let the other wench wait upon them. They threw the china on the floor in anger. Thou must even come, ay, fair, but I will see that thou dost not meet with insult. First, however, what dost thou want with me? I said I would find and bring thee. I did so that I might have the opportunity of speaking with thee privately, as thou didst desire. Oh, sir, I began hurriedly, clasping my hands in passionate entreaty. 'Tis about Will Shakespeare. He gave me a quick glance. My right good friend. I wondered why I did not see him as we came through the town. What of him? Then, rapidly, beseechingly, I told of his imprisonment and its cause, spoke also of Will's intention of joining the players when they came, then reached the point of my story. And now wilt thou not free him? I cried, the tears springing to my eyes, unbidden, as I caught Master Burbage's hand. Ye are many, and the gaol will be deserted tomorrow while the town is at the play. I will show you where the prison is. Will not some of you go and free him? Then he will to London with you. Then he will, I'm guessing, go to London with you. And when he comes back, then the prank that made him captive may be forgotten or forgiven. O Master Burbage, thou art his friend. Set him free. Prithee, set him free. He looked at me in deep thought for an instant. "'Tis possible, I think," he said at last, and for very joy at the words I bent and kissed his hand. "But no one must know of our plan save ourselves." He paused and looked at me, as if a sudden thought had struck him. "Come," he said, and motioned to the room he had just left. "Come. Thou thyself wilt be thine own best advocate." With no thought save a will, I followed him. The players set up a shout of joy at my entrance, but I heard them not, nor did I heed the amorous glances that some cast at me. Burbage raised his hand to command silence. "This maid hath a tale to tell us, my masters," he said. "Prithee listen well." Then quickly and to the best of my power I told my story once again. The players were most appreciative listeners. They roared with laughter at the plot against Sir Thomas, and their faces grew sober as they heard of Will's overthrow. Most of them knew him, or knew of him, for many belonged to Stratford or its neighborhood, and then he had always taken a warm interest in the players and their work. When at length my tale was ended and my plan to free Will was revealed, one of the actors I had not noticed before sprang up upon the table, a cup of wine in his hand. "Down with the Puritans," he cried in a whining, nasal voice, irresistibly comic. "To the rescue of a gallant Will and his comrades. If thou shoutest out thy opinions in that fashion, Will Kemp, thou wilt join Shakespeare and his friends." "Instead of going to their rescue," observed Green, "play not the clown now. 'Tis not the time nor place." "Nay, chide not honest Kemp," said Burbage kindly, as Kemp, looking somewhat abashed, got down from the table. "He voices all our thoughts, I know. What say you, comrades? Shall we rescue Will and take him with us to London?" "Ay," they all shouted heartily, even Green, while Marlowe, leaping to his feet, raised his glass in his hand as Kemp had done. "A health," he cried, his handsome, insolent eyes fixed full upon me, a mocking smile upon his lips. "A health to Shakespeare's freedom and Shakespeare's sweetheart." And that ends chapter 6, and we shall go back and look at the scenery. "A health to Shakespeare's freedom and Shakespeare's sweetheart." And there's Anne Hathaway. If you had an inkling to know what they depict her as. There she is. All right, Brobs, goodbye. Goodbye.